Before I show anything on this guide, I want to preface this whole video by saying this video isn't meant to be some kind of rules list, nor is it some means of trying to invalidate characters by assigning labels either. This is simply a guide I've put together in an attempt to help people understand or have an easier time identifying the term EXE as a horror categorization, or character categorization, as I know the term is distinctly loose and open-ended. I came up with this little guide to educate, not divide. Thank you for listening. I will now continue. I've spent a lot of time in the EXE community, and I'm a big nerd on the subject. I was there since the original story, and I watched as it changed into something actually respectable in the hands of others, and hell, I even have my own EXE. All this to say, I've spent a lot of time seeing EXE characters be made, the fan games, songs, and of course the drama in its community. Something that I've noticed a decent few people talk about is what classifies something as a set-in-stone EXE and what doesn't. And while I can't promise you a 100% foolproof guide, I can instead attempt to share my personal perspective of and definition of what an EXE is. Oh yeah, I don't have actual editing software, so you're going to have to bear with this. First, we'll start with 2011X, the one who started it all. So, obviously this is an EXE. I'm well aware. But I'm using him as an easy example of what to expect and what to look for. So with that being said, let's move on to this. These are the 5 red rings. This is my sort of password strength system. How this works is the amount of rings that are attributed to these 5 present traits, then they are very much likely to be an EXE. Like if you have all 5 of these rings, then you are more than likely an EXE. If you have, say, 4, it's very likely, but not 100%. 3, that means half, so sort of potentially an EXE. 2, not really, and 1, barely. And 0 rings, well, you are so extremely unlikely to be one at first glance. Now, I would like to say that these are not the 100% set in stone things that need to be there for an EXE to be an EXE. These are just very common traits I've noticed and have narrowed down to be at least very evident hallmarks of what makes an EXE. Now, you don't need to have any of these to make a character into an EXE. Hell, if you have an EXE that doesn't have any of these, that's good. You're doing something different, and I encourage it. I encourage you to take a creative approach, a different approach, something fresh. And also, that isn't to imply that this is boring because, oh, it's been done so many times. Oh, we've seen all this before. That's not what I'm inferring here. Though, of course, things can get stale if someone just creates the exact same thing over and over. This is not the case. Without further ado, though, let me first go into the first ring. Are they some form of powerful being, demon, entity, spirit, etc.? Yes, 2011X is a being born from the void. To my knowledge, he is a being comprised of antimatter. So, this counts. Whenever these don't count, there will be some indicator within the ring. If it's just blank, it counts. Second ring. Do they take on the appearance of or form of a fictional character? I don't know. You tell me. I'd say he does. Third, are they aware of the fourth wall and the player? Yes. X is very aware. He he speaks to the player multiple times throughout the story. And if I recall correctly, he can take people, bring them into his world, and force them into a Sonic character vessel, in which he can make them play his twisted game over and over and over. Fourth, are they outwardly malicious and evil? Once again, I don't know. You tell me. The answer is yes. Finally, the fifth one. Do they possess near godlike power, if not more so? Oh yes. Yes, he does. So with all of these checked off, then they are verified to be an EXE. They are a very strongly to be an EXE. If it weren't already obvious by the fact that this is confirmed to be an EXE. Okay, next one. Before we go to him, I would like to say, yes, I know he isn't an EXE, but once again, I am showing an example of what to expect, and in this case, what not to expect. We have MX from Mario 85, and also one of my personal favorites. First off, let's start with the first hat. I made the Mario characters ones have Mario hats because it's cute. First off, are they some form of powerful being, demon, entity, spirit, etc.? Yes. MX is a primordial spirit who's existed since the beginning of time and has laid dormant for a very long time. There's not too much we know about MX's past before taking on this form of Mario, but we do know he is as old as time itself. Second, do they take on the appearance or form of a fictional character? Yes, MX takes on the warped appearance of Mario. Third, are they aware of the fourth wall and the player? Technically he is, because he speaks to Lucas through the game, meaning he is definitely aware, though in the context of the game, I don't really think he's aware of us playing Mario 85 because we are playing as Lucas. So, in the context of his story, yes, he is aware of the fourth wall and people who play his game. We'll go with that. Fourth, is he outwardly malicious and or evil? Yes. He is manipulative as his false hero form, and evil and attack-worthy as his second and third form. Fifth, do they possess near godlike power, if not more so? Listen, MX may have supernatural powers, but he doesn't even need them to be fucking horrifying. He is already so physically strong, so durable, so indestructible. He is a legitimate juggernaut of power. And if it's near godlike we're talking about, I feel like he could fight a god. That being, I feel like he could probably fight 2011 X and wipe the floor with him. Lord X is a different story though. I'd feel they're on even footing. But, with that being said, yes. I would say yes. However, even with these being checked, and you would assume, even if you weren't, you would assume, if you weren't already told about it, that he is an EXE. You would assume this. And it's not wrong to initially assume this. However, he isn't. He has been explicitly stated to not be an EXE. He is a horror brew. See, he comes from a game called Mario 85, which, if I remember correctly, was initially called Mario PC Port. It was a sort of counterpart to Sonic PC Port, which is the game Lord X comes from. I don't know if it was meant to be a love letter to that or anything, but I know it obviously took inspiration, and with that, there was a time where, around MX's conception, he was sort of called Mario.exe, which is what people thought the name stood for. When in fact, it doesn't stand for anything. His name just is MX. It's no acronym, it just is 2 letters. So, this goes to show as an example that even if they have all the boxes checked, if the creator says otherwise, then they are not an EXE. Something I should mention is that it is very important and a very big deciding factor once the creator voices their perspective on the character. Like, if they voice, yes, this character is an EXE. I've made this character who, when I put them through this whole category list, this guide, they just so happen to not check any of the boxes. However, I explicitly have stated that they are an EXE. If that's the case, treat them as an EXE. If not, you can speculate. I would say speculate. But don't automatically assume, unless told otherwise. And don't, like, harass the creator of said character and be like, is this an EXE? Is this an EXE? They don't file under all these categories. They don't do this and that. So they totally can't be an EXE, right? Because you might just ruin it for them. You might just make them a bit too self-conscious about their own character and make them second-guess everything they add to that character. So don't do that. Let them answer the question themselves. Or if you feel like you can, ask them in a passive manner. Ask them in a calm manner. Don't be forcive, don't be assertive, just ask. Unless, of course, they have said they don't want to talk about that sort of thing. Anyways, MX is not an EXE, even if he has certain traits that other things like EXEs do possess. Next, we have EYX, or alternatively known as Sonic.EYX. If it wasn't already obvious from the fact his name has the same format style as Sonic.exe, yes, this is an EXE. However, we will not skim over these. This is a guide, and if a guide skims over something, you don't learn. So, we will start with the first ring. Is it some form of powerful being, demon, entity, spirit, etc.? Yes. Though, I don't believe we know what specifically it is, but what we do know is it most likely is some form of entity. Then we're on to the second ring. Do they take on the appearance or form of a fictional character? Now, this one is a bit tricky, and it makes me have to address something that will show up later with the other entries. First off, taking on the appearance or form of this character, of a fictional character. When I say that, I refer to, did they purposefully change their own form to resemble this character, or did they purposefully choose to disguise themselves as this character? To my knowledge, EYX didn't take on the form of or take on the appearance of Sonic. It parasitically took over his body. And I will generalize how it works and will be categorized this way. If it is actually Sonic, or if it is actually the character in question, then they do not count, because they are not taking on the appearance of that character or form. They literally are that character. If it's something else and a different individual who is using the body, then yes, that counts. I would say that counts because they aren't that character and are instead using the body of that character and thus assuming the likeness of the character. Even if by assuming the likeness, the quote-unquote, they are actually just using the real body. So yes, this is a yes. Next ring. Are they aware of the fourth wall and the player? Oh yes. Yes, they are. They are very aware. That was easy. Fourth ring. Are they outwardly malicious and evil? Yes. Yes, they are. Now, this is the first time I've made one of the rings a question mark. Because this one is the, do they possess near godlike power, if not more so? I don't know. I really don't know if they possess godlike power. EYX is obviously really powerful. However, I have no idea if it's near godlike, or even more so. Though this is just because I haven't seen enough of EYX, and I'm pretty sure most of us haven't, because at the moment all we have is his game, which is a trial or a demo. So until his story is further explored and this is properly addressed, we don't know his full strength capacity. However, despite this, he is a verified EXE. It is an EXE. It's very obviously one. So, let's just say if we didn't already know it for a fact that he was one, we just took the score we have here, the 4 out of 5. He was already very likely to be one, so yes. Yes, he is. Next, we have a bit of a tricky one. Aside from the fact it obviously states what it is in the name. Though you'll come to find that there is deceptively less on the scoreboard than you might think, despite the name being Mario.exe. And yes, there can be EXEs that aren't Sonic related. This is a thing that can occur, and Mario.exe, the Cool Rash variant, is a very good example of this. Now, we move on to the first hat. Are they some form of powerful being, demon, entity, spirit, etc.? Yes. In the Cool Rash Mario.exe game, Mario is corrupted by Satan himself, I believe. Now, listen, I know that sounds a little goofy, but like, it's nice. It's a nice game. It's a beloved game. It's a classic in the EXE and even Horror Brew community. Everybody knows Mario.exe. Everybody. So, with that being said, I guess technically he is some form of powerful being. He is a demonically altered human. That's what we'll categorize him as. Second, the not available takes on appearance of or form of a fictional character. The reason that says not available, I will explain like it says there. This is what I was referring to earlier when I said, well, where is it? This is what I was referring to earlier when I said I have to address the second ring here on EYX proper for something that will show up later. Now it has. So, first off, I mentioned how, unless it's an outside influence that we consider to be the EXE in question, taking control of the body of the person, of the character, then they aren't one. And in this case, it isn't Lucifer using Mario's body, it is Mario being corrupted by Lucifer. So it is still him. It is still Mario, he's just corrupted. He is himself. So, this is a no. This is non-applicable. Third, are they aware of the fourth wall and the player? This one was also a little bit hard to discern because even though there's a title screen at the beginning of the game that changes for like a split second, and then there's also a jump scare that, uses the Five Nights at Freddy's 1 scream, which is admittedly kind of funny, but not in a way where I'm demeaning it. I don't think that both of those represent Mario.exe breaking the fourth wall and acknowledging the player's presence. The first, I believe, is just something for, well, flavor. It's a horror thing, and Mario.exe is meant to be an obvious, well, nod to Sonic.exe, and you know how that works. You know that they'll do that sort of thing. That they'll change the title for a split second, and then do something scary like that. And I believe that the jump scare near the end is similarly done in this vein. However, I believe that despite the fact Mario.exe jump scares the player looking... Well, not jump scares the player. When the jump scare happens, he is facing the fourth wall. I like to think that that is actually just him facing Luigi, and we're seeing it from Luigi's perspective. So that is why I consider that a no. I don't think that Mario.exe is aware of the fourth wall. Fourth hat. Are they outwardly malicious and evil? Yes. They were literally possessed and... Well, not possessed. He was literally corrupted by Lucifer. Like, come on. Fourth hat. I can't count. Fifth hat. Do they possess near godlike power, if not more so? I don't think that he actually does. While yes, he's noticeably very powerful, just like with EYX, I don't really think it's godlike. Though with Mario.exe, I can more confidently affirm that. Because what we've seen of the character, he doesn't have godlike strength. The feats of strength that he has shown are superhuman. That's what we'll refer to it as. They are superhuman, but not godlike. So, aside from the obvious set-in-stone confirmation of the name and categorization, we would say he could potentially be an EXE. However, he is verified because, well, look at the name. Next, we move on to Kilobyte, which is another guaranteed one. Kilobyte is the Mario counterpart of Lord X. He is meant to be a Mario version of that character. Though it's to my understanding that both Kilobyte and Lord X exist separately and exist as their own people. They are not the same person. It's not like one occupies one universe while the other occupies an alternate universe. They both exist at once, I think. But anyways, first hat. Are they some form of powerful being, demon, entity, spirit, etc.? Yes. Given the fact that Kilobyte is supposed to be a very similar being to Lord X, who he himself is a being born from the void, I would wager that Kilobyte himself is as well. So yes. The second hat. Do they take on the appearance or form of a fictional character? Yes. Kilobyte takes on the appearance of Mario wearing that one power-up in Mario Galaxy. The soaring one. You know the one. I don't know its exact name, but you know the one. Third hat. Are they aware of the fourth wall and the player? Yes, he definitely is. Fourth hat. Are they outwardly malicious or evil? I'm gonna be completely honest. Kilobyte has that kind of vibe of... If you bear with the horrors and terrifying things that are around him, I feel like he would be chill with you. Sort of like how I sort of feel Lord X is a similar way. However, Kilobyte is still capable of horrible things, and I don't think it's ridiculous to assume he has done horrible things. So with that being said, just to be safe, we check that one. Fifth hat. Do they possess near godlike power, if not more so? Again, this is a counterpart of Lord X, who has been stated to have limitless potential. So I think it's safe to wager Kilobyte also has a similar gauge of power. So this is a verified EXE. That was easier. Moving on to Curse. Now, I don't want to hear anybody shit about this character. Alright? We are here to grade this character, and that's it. Thank you very much. Anyways, Curse, I don't know that much about their story because if I recall correctly, they're currently being rewritten and or their story is just being written in general. And I'm very interested to see where that goes. But for the time being, what we're presented with and what I seem to recall of this version of the character, starting with the first ring, I don't know if they're some form of powerful being. I don't know if there's some form of altered Mobian, which yes, Curse is a Mobian. Curse's story takes place within the context of the Sonic universe. I'm unsure if he's supposed to be some form of, I don't know, possessed or altered being. There's just too much lack of definite answer of what Curse is to really answer that, so we'll leave that unsure. Second ring, do they take on the appearance or form of a fictional character? Again, this goes back to the they literally are that character, so it doesn't count rule. To my knowledge, Curse is that universe version of Sonic, which just happens to look like that, which there's nothing wrong with. I think that's still an interesting way to go about the character. But in regards to this list, they technically do not check off that box. So third one, I am unsure if they're aware of the fourth wall and the player. Well, in this case, I don't believe there would be a player per se, because Curse isn't in a game to my knowledge. I only seem to recall that Curse exists within the context of the Sonic universe. So the fourth wall is the more likely one, but even then, I don't know if he is aware of the fourth wall. I doubt he'd do anything malicious even if he were, but again, we don't have a definitive answer, or at the very least, I can't find one. So that one's unsure. Next, the fourth box, the ring. The fourth ring. Are they outwardly malicious or evil? No. Curse is not evil, like outwardly. Curse is not malicious. Curse is just a happy being. Like, it's adorable. He's precious. So, that is an absolute no. But just bear in mind, you don't have to be outwardly malicious or evil to still be an EXE. You can not be those things and still be an EXE. Fifth ring. Do they possess near godlike power, if not more so? Despite the fact that his story is currently being, handled right now, I'm pretty sure that what we currently have is at least sufficient enough evidence to put together the answer of no. I don't believe he is near godlike in strength. I believe he has the potential to be rather strong, but until proven otherwise, I don't believe he possesses near godlike power. So, if we were to ignore the verification, we would have a rating of not likely enough to be an EXE. However, they have been confirmed to be one. They are apparently an EXE. Anyways, with that being said, we will move on to the next one, the God of the Forest, a character from apostrophe the or Coronation Day if you prefer. This character is a bit of a tricky one because, a bit like Curse, we don't have too much information on them right now. But I used them in this with what we do know. First hat. Are they some form of powerful being, demon, entity, spirit, etc.? Yes. We don't know what exactly they are, but we do know that they are some form of powerful being. Second, do they take on the appearance or form of a fictional character? This goes back to the if they are using the body of that of that character, it still counts. And to my knowledge, this forest being is using Peach's body as a vessel. So yes, that counts. Third hat, are they aware of the fourth wall and the player? I don't believe so, but I would completely believe if we were told they are. I would believe it. I would believe it. But I don't believe we have enough evidence right now to support the fact that they do. And I personally don't think they can, so I have chosen to mark this as a no. Fourth hat, are they outwardly malicious or evil? Yes. Forest King, which, yes, that's the Pillar Chase name. I'm using the Pillar Chase name. I believe they have shown aggression many times. They are outwardly hostile and will attack. Fifth hat, do they possess near godlike power, if not more so? Again, this goes back to not having enough evidence on the subject matter to really make a definite answer. So, we don't know if the Forest King is strong enough to, well, be considered godlike, or even more so. So that is marked uncertain. Now then, we move on to the EXE-o-meter. However, we don't have to, because they have been explicitly stated to not be an EXE. This character is an antagonist in a ROM hack. I don't know if that would count them as a horror brew, like something like MX. I wouldn't be surprised if so, but we know for certain that they have been confirmed to not be an EXE. However, if they weren't given that set-in-stone confirmation, their current score makes it so-so that they could be one. And if we were being generous and included 4 of the 3 hats, then very likely, but not 100%. Anyways, on to the final one, End, from Green Mountain. Now, this is a very unique case, and a very interesting example of a rare occurrence for this guide list out in the wild. This is a character who we know so exponentially little about that you literally can't check off any of the boxes without being too uncertain. Are they some form of powerful being? We don't know. Do they take on the appearance or form of a fictional character? It's already so muddied with, is that Sonic or is it something that looks like him, that we legitimately can't have a definitive answer. Yes, I know that near the end of the game, if you don't want spoilers for Green Mountain, I'd say skip ahead. We know that near the end of the game, once you defeat this character here, you will slowly morph into them and take their place, implying that this is Sonic, if it wasn't already obvious from, well, the way they look. Then we don't know. We just can't really be sure if they are supposed to be something that looks like Sonic, or even if the Sonic we start as isn't Sonic, and it's actually something that's taking on his appearance. Third ring. Are they aware of the fourth wall and the player? There's really not enough evidence to show that it acknowledges the player, or if it can and it just won't. Fourth ring. Are they outwardly malicious or evil? Again, not enough evidence to support that. It's sure they attack us, but we don't know why. We don't know what that's about. We don't know if there's hostile intent behind it. We don't know if it's because they're defending themselves from us because they think we're hostile. We don't know. There is no definitive answer. Fifth ring. Do they possess near godlike power, if not more so? We really don't know. Like, we don't even see End for that long, to be honest. So, with that being said, the EXE-o-meter has, for one of the rarest occasions, been made indeterminate instead of just not likely at all, as if there were no rings checked. It's not that they're not checked or simply checked. We don't know if they can be checked. And that's why this rare occurrence of literally everything being unchecked results in indeterminate. Now, I could be wrong, and you can all let me know if I am in the comments. If this character has been confirmed to not be an EXE. Me personally, I don't believe they are an EXE. Whenever you hear people talk about Green Mountain, you notice them talk about how different it is for one of these games. You hear them talk about how mysterious it is and how it's really not in line with most EXE games. And having seen it, I can agree with that. I don't really see it as an EXE game, and I don't see End as an EXE style character. So, with that being said, this is an indeterminate character, but it's likely that they aren't an EXE. And that was my guide. That was my little basics of what you can try and use to help identify an EXE out in the wild, if you will. And again, it's not a 100% set in stone, oh, this is exactly how an EXE should be. If they don't have all of these qualities, then they'll never be EXEs. It's not like that. No. This is just a means of trying to make it simpler, a means of trying to make understanding the term EXE simpler. To me, an EXE as a character or as a concept instead of, well, as an executable file, which is where the thing actually comes from, an EXE is a collective of traits. Specific traits, but not just these specific traits. It can be a multitude of things. These were just common ones. An EXE is a multitude of traits that are specific and put together that form the idea of an EXE. Like, that's where the whole crux of this password strength ring number EXE-o-meter determinator come from. Like, determinator isn't a word. A way of determining, there. A way of determining if they are an EXE. That's where that came from. There will never ever be a set in stone way of determining if a character is an EXE. There will never be any way of doing that. Unless the creator themselves says if the character is one or isn't, there is no 100% set in stone way. This guide isn't useless because of that. It is instead a way of, well, coming to understand the term better and helping identify the traits of an EXE character. So, yeah, this was my little EXE classification guide, I guess. And thank you for watching. If you have any questions about, like, if a character is an EXE that you're thinking of, you can put it in the comments if you'd like, and preferably, if you can, try and send a link to that character's Wikipedia page or fandom page, any page that has descriptions of the character, so that I can read up on it and try and figure it out myself. Or if you'd like, you can try and use this guide yourself and put an EXE-esque character through it. Any questions you might have about this guide or about things regarding EXEs in general, I would be glad to answer in the comments. Thank you for watching. Have a nice time of day wherever it is you are.